Gathering data for transfer equivalence. You have three choices to gather data for transfer equivalences. Number one, you can build equivalences for all courses for the transfer college, and that just means you're going to get that college's complete catalog and build the equivalences right away. Or you may just pull from Banner what courses y'all have in that college's catalog and build those equivalences. It really depends on what your college wants to do. Some colleges have built the equivalents for all courses for the transfer college for colleges that they get a lot of transfers from. Number two, you can obtain equivalent information as needed when performing transfer articulation. And I'm going to show you an example of that. Like I get a student's transcript in and I want to be able to enter that student's transfer work. When I start to enter it, if I see courses do not have an equivalent, then I'm going to request that information so I can complete that articulation on that student. Or number three, you can use a combination of both. You can take all the courses you have in the Banner catalog for the transferring college, have someone build those equivalences right away, and then as you get new courses coming in from the transferring college, you can use option number two to have that information provided to you and then enter it in. And I'm going to show you an example of how to do those the three different options. So build equivalents for all courses for the transfer college. In order to do this, we've created a Cognos report that you can use to pull data from Banner. So you can pull the college's courses that have been entered in on the catalog, which is SHATATC, and then it also pulls in the equivalences that have been built on SHATATR. So someone can take that Cognos report, they can see what courses already have an equivalent, which ones do not, then they provide that Cognos report to someone at the college who can actually provide them with the equivalents to the courses that do not have an equivalent already, and then an end user within the registrar's office or admissions office could then enter those equivalences for that college. Now your next question is going to be, how do I pull that Cognos report? Well, to pull that Cognos report, you're actually going to go into Lola. So you're just going to access Lola, and you're going to log in using your login information. And then once you log into Lola, you're going to look on the right side of your screen. You're going to scroll all the way to the bottom, and you're looking for the link called Cognos Production. I click on Cognos Production, and then I'm going to click on My Home. And then sometimes when you log into Lola, it's going to require you to log in a second time to get into Cognos. Just note that your Lola credentials and your Cognos credentials are the same thing. Once I'm in Cognos, I'm going to scroll down and I'm looking for student reports because that's where this particular report is located. And you may not have as many folders as you see on my computer. Remember, this is going to have public folders, and that's where you're going to want to be. And then I'll scroll down, and once again, these are in alphabetical order, so I'm looking for student reports. I click on student reports, and then I'm looking for the transfer course articulation report. Once again, these are in alphabetical order, so I know I just need to scroll to the bottom and get to the T's. And there's the Cognos report titled Transfer Course Articulation. I click on that link, and then when you get to this page, you're going to have it where it has a campus. You don't mess with the campuses. I never use the campuses. I go straight to the ones that say ATC_report, CATC_report. And for this demonstration, I'm actually going to use BRCC. So I do BRCC_report. Now remember, when you go in, you're not going to have all these options. You're going to just see the links for your college. So you look for the one that says BRCC_report, DCC_report, whatever college you work at. You scroll to the bottom and you're going to click OK. The next page that's going to come up is my prompt page, and this allows me to decide what exactly do I want to look at. Now, since I went in as BRCC, I'm going to click BRCC. You always select your college in the first block. And then for the transfer institution, because there's so many transfer institutions within Banner, we have to reprompt this report to be able to pull what we need. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in LS, and I'm going to click reprompt. So I typed in LS because I want the beginning of LSU, and I click reprompt. And then you notice it brings me just in the third block, it only shows me the colleges that begin with LS. So I'm going to use LS Baton Rouge. So I click on that. And then the last one says show only courses where the equivalent course is valued. That means I'm only looking for the courses that have equivalences, which for this particular process, you don't want that. You want to see all the courses. So I'm going to leave that as no, and I'm going to click finish. And then the report's going to start to run. Now sometimes if it's taken too long, I'll go ahead and say select a delivery method. I'll say email report, and then it'll bring up a box and I can click OK, and that'll actually send the Cognos report to my email, so I don't have to sit here and wait for Banner to finish what it wants to do. Now, once the report comes open, this is what it's going to look like. So you can see it has the transfer institution number, the description of the institution, and then it has group, primary indicator, program, transfer subject, transfer course number, transfer title, transfer effective term, equivalent exist, transfer catalog, transfer level code, the transfer status code, the transfer minimum grade, transfer credit low, high, protect from import, connector, and then the institution subject, that's your college's subject, your college's course number, and then the institutional title, and then the institutional credit. So if you go look on SHA-TATR, that's actually going to show you all of this information. So since I'm using BRCC, if I go to SHA-TATR, I just want to show you how the report pulls the information straight from INB Banner. So right here, the first course on the Cognos report is ANS 054H. So you have ANS 054H. So right here you have the college, the transfer college information, just like you saw in the Cognos report. And then down here you can actually see the equivalent course for BRCC. So when you actually pull this report, you want to actually look at the end of the report to see are there any courses that do not have an equivalent. So right here, you can see this course right here does not have an equivalent. So I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to scroll over. And you're going to see it's the ANTH 4063, something History US to 1914. So what I would do is I'd highlight all the courses at LSU that do not have an equivalent. Then I would email that spreadsheet to the person at my college who would be responsible for providing me with an equivalent. And then they would finish filling out the report to tell me what the equivalent is. Then they would send it back to me, and that's when I would take that information, or an end user within the registrar and admissions office would take that information and they would enter it in onto SHA-TATR. So this is option number 1. Okay, option number 2 is to obtain equivalent information as needed when performing transfer articulation. You will have to create a process for your college to obtain information about transfer equivalent courses. So if you're going to use this process as an end user is entering in transfer work for an individual student and they see that an equivalent has not been built, then you have to have a process in place for that student to request, for that end user to request that information from the person at your college who would be responsible for providing the equivalent information, so that the end user could then enter that data into INB Banner and finish the articulation for the student. So one option that you could use would be using a Google Doc. And with the Google Doc, I'm going to show you how it can work. This is totally up to you, your college, if y'all want to use this. But there's 2 people involved, the articulator end user and the person or persons responsible for providing equivalences. So the articulator end user would add courses that need equivalences. Once the equivalent provided, they would enter the data on SHA-TATR. And then they would add the name and date completed to first tab on Google Doc, and then move completed equivalents to the second tab of the Google Doc. The person or persons responsible for providing equivalences would check the Google Doc weekly, or you can have them do it daily, it's totally up to you, and they would provide the equivalent information. Now I'm going to demonstrate how you can use the Google Doc to gather the data. So the Google Doc, each college must build their own Google Doc. You're going to see that I have an example Google Doc, but you do not want to use that one. Every college needs to have their own. They're going to provide the articulator end user and the person or persons responsible for entering equivalents with the Google Doc link. And then they're going to train them on their responsibilities. The articulators, the first step for the articulator is to figure out how do you know when the equivalent is needed. And that's when you go to SHA-TATR and no equivalent is built. So for example, I have a student's transcript in front of me and I'm going through the process to enter that transfer articulation information, and I get to SHA-TATR. And when I go to this form, I'm trying to see if there's an equivalent built for the courses on the student's transcript. So for this example, I'm going to use the American Public University. So you enter in the college institution code in the institution field block. You perform a next block. And then I'm going to query because I'm actually looking for the English 101. So I hit the query button, the question mark. And then in the subject field, I put in English 101. And then I hit the execute query button, and you can see that this course from American Public University, English 101, does not have an equivalent built for BRCC. So this tells me as the articulator that I need to gather this data from the person at my college who's responsible for providing me with that information. So once I realize there's no equivalent built, that's when I access the Cognos report, and I'm going to add the courses or the course that need equivalences. And when I add it, I'm going to put the date that I put the course on the Google Doc. I'm going to put the student's ID, the student name, the college department, the transfer college name, the transfer college code, the transfer course subject and number, and the transfer course description. Now you're probably wondering why we're putting the student ID and name, because that's not really needed when you're building equivalents. Well, it's so when you get this information back, the articulator will know, okay, I need to finish this student's articulation information. So once your end users, your articulators, and your people who are responsible for providing you with the equivalent data have the Google Doc link, it's very easy. They just have to click on the link, and it's actually going to bring up the Google Doc. So I'm going to enter in the data. I'm entering the student's banner ID for the transcript I was trying to perform an articulation on. And then I enter in the student's last name and first name. And remember, this is just so that the articulator can finish the process. I enter in the department, so this is going to be, say, the English department. The transfer college. The transfer college code, and then the course. The course, you actually put the subject and the course number in the same field, and then the course title. And remember, I'm entering in this from the transferring institution. And then the description. And remember, the description is not going to be located on the student's official transcript from the other college. You'll probably have to go to that school's website to locate the course description, or contact the college, whatever process you're currently using. And that's what the articulator will enter. Once the data is entered on the Google Doc, it automatically saves, so there's nothing else that they need to do at this point. The next step is the person responsible for providing transfer equivalent information. So they will need to access the Google Doc and they need to provide the equivalent. And for that, they're going to say, does it have an equivalent? Yes or no. What is if it's a yes, what is the equivalent? Who is providing the equivalent information? And the date it was provided. So once again, the person responsible for providing the data would access the Google Doc simply by clicking the link that you provided them. And then they're going to go in, they're going to read, and they say this is an English course at American Public University. Here's the course description. And they're going to say yes or no. Does it have an equivalent? This course does, so they're going to put yes. And then they're going to put the equivalent for B or CC. And then they're going to put their name, who actually put in this equivalent, and then the date it was approved. And then there you don't have to save it, because remember, the minute you type into a Google Doc, it automatically saves, and their process is complete. Once the person responsible for providing the equivalent provides the equivalent, then it's the articulator's job to go back to the Google Doc and complete the process. So once the equivalent is provided, they have to enter that information on SHA-TATR. They need to add the name and date completed to the first tab of the Google Doc, move completed equivalents to the second tab of the Google Doc. So we're going to go back to the Google Doc. And the articulator can see that this information has been provided. So now they need to go into Banner and enter this information. So they're going to go to SHA-TATR. I still have the college here, American Public University. And if they don't, it's right here on the Google Doc. See right here, NC19. Tells me what the college is and the course that I need to look at, which was English 101. They're going to perform the next block, and then they're going to enter the equivalent that was provided by the person at their college. And then they're going to put the credits, the title, and then the credit, and then they save. Now, once they built this equivalent in SHA-TATR, they go back to the Google Doc. They're going to put their name, who completed this, and then the date it was completed. And once again, they do not have to save it because the Google Doc automatically saves it. The last step they want to do with the Google Doc is they're going to highlight it, and they're going to cut it, and then they're going to paste it into the second tab called Completed Equivalences. And they're going to paste it. So once again, we're just moving it from the equivalent needed tab to the completed equivalent. They like to keep, if you'd like to keep a running spreadsheet of who provided the equivalent information, it's good to keep that second tab. And the first tab is always a tab that needs to be completed. So this is the presentation on gathering data for transfer equivalences. I do want you to note that after the articulator has entered the equivalent, they then should go and complete the transfer articulation process for that student. Since the equivalent's been entered, they now can go through that complete process to finish articulating that student's information. And that's why on the Google Doc you provide the student's banner ID and their name and the college, so that you know when you get that information, you're ready to finish their articulated information.